Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Thursday's 10 a.m. virtual education program. My name is Rachel, education specialist here at the Topeka Zoo, and today we are focusing on third grade curriculum. Now, before we get started, I would like to thank our sponsors, Topeka Collegiate and the Kokari Foundation, for sponsoring these programs. We appreciate it. Now today, we are going to be talking, like I said, about third grade curriculum relating to environmental changes. And what an environmental change is just like the name suggests, it's a change in the ecosystem, in the environment where plants and animals live. And environmental changes can take on many forms. It could literally be shifting the landscape where they live. It could be warming temperatures, changing of water and how it is distributed. It could be the introduction of a new species that's not native to an area, which becomes invasive. There are lots of reasons for environmental changes and how that affects plants and animals in their ecosystem. So today, what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about some of the environmental changes here in Kansas and in the Midwest, and how that is affecting some of our bird species. And then we are going to meet one of my favorite education animals, Lily the turkey vulture, who is behind me. So you guys, in the United States, we have experienced a loss of our bird species. Since 1970, we have lost 2.9 billion birds in the last 50 years. That is a decline of about 30% of our birds. And we have over 600 different species of birds in the United States. Now, most of our bird species that are declining are going to be the little guys, like the songbirds. Other types of birds, like birds of prey or waterfowl, like ducks and geese, those are actually on the increase. But some of our littler bird species are the ones who are being negatively affected by environmental changes. And when we see changes in the environment, some plants and animals, they adapt. Some are able to reproduce or move on to a new location, and some are not able to survive. So when we're talking about these changes, it affects differing species in differing ways. So here in Kansas, the two major environmental changes that we are facing are habitat loss and pesticide and herbicide use. Now, when I'm talking about habitat loss, what I mean is many of our ecosystems that are wild, like our prairies and our wetlands and our woodlands, they are changing from being those ecosystems to being something humans use for agriculture purposes. We are changing our native lands into crop fields and to fields for cows and other types of livestock so that we can have our own types of food and drink. So if you look, this is a picture of a prairie that has gotten converted to a field. This is something that is happening all across our state. Now, humans do need food. However, we need to be careful about where we spread out over the world because we are taking over a lot of the wild places that plants and animals live. So habitat loss, as well as habitat fragmentation, is a problem here in Kansas. And what I mean by fragmentation is we are not just cutting down a huge patch of land in one go. We are cutting down a piece over here, or a piece over here, or a piece over here, which means animals have some room still, but it's in patches and they're not able to find everything they need. Maybe some food's in this location and another food is in this location, or a mate is farther away. So there's habitat loss and fragmentation, which are a problem. And the other problem here in Kansas that we're going to talk about today are herbicide and pesticide use. Now, those are just two fancy words for chemicals. Herbicides are chemicals that people spray on plants and on their gardens to get rid of weeds. Pesticides are chemicals that people spray into the environment to get rid of bugs that they don't want, that may be eating their crops and their plants. And so when people spray these chemicals, these poisons, to get rid of weeds and pest bugs, it affects other animals as well. That poison doesn't just kill the weed or the pest bug, it kills anything that eats it. So if a bug eats pesticide and dies, and a bird swoops down and eats that dead bug, those chemicals move from the bug to the bird, and that bird passes away. And then if a scavenger like a coyote comes and eats that bird, the poison goes to the coyote as well. So these chemicals, while they may actually be getting rid of your weeds and of the pest bugs, it actually has more dire consequences throughout an ecosystem. So there are 5 main birds in Kansas who are declining as a result of habitat loss due to conversion for agriculture or herbicide and pesticide use. So real quick, I want to go over those 5 with you. Now the first one is what we call the black-billed magpie. And this is a type of bird who likes to forage over our fields and our streams. They are very social birds, and they like to eat things that are on the ground. They are omnivores, so they will eat both plants and other animals like bugs. Well, this is an animal that is being affected by both of our environmental changes. By foraging on the ground, they are losing territory when their home is being converted to fields for agriculture and for livestock. But also, if they eat bugs who have been affected by pesticides, they get negatively affected as well. They get that poison into their body. So the black-billed magpie is one of our own native Kansas birds who are declining due to environmental changes. Now the next one is a super interesting one. This is what we call a loggerhead shrike. And it's a beautiful bird. It's a little bit smaller than a robin. And I think these guys are fascinating. They are actually predators. They will eat other animals, things like small frogs, lizards, bugs, small mammals. And so as you can imagine, anything that has gotten those chemicals in their body, again, passes on to this bird. But one of the most fascinating things about the loggerhead shrike is that they are actually known for impaling their prey. And what I mean by that is they'll kill something like a small frog and impale it on a piece of barbed wire or a piece of a thorn. And they'll actually leave it there and come back and eat it later, which is kind of morbid, but also kind of fascinating that there is a bird species that is smart enough to do that. But unfortunately, this is another example of an animal who is declining due to our own environmental changes because of human activity. Now this next bird is very cool and one you might have heard of. It is what we call a chimney swift. Now as the name suggests, chimney swifts live in chimneys. Now their environmental change is a little bit different because humans, we don't have the traditional chimneys we used to. We don't have the big, tall brick and mortar chimneys. And these guys actually don't have homes as much anymore because of it. They also, if they can't find a chimney, will nest in caves, they'll nest in trees, and they are a type of bird that eats bugs. So as you can imagine, again, the herbicides and the pesticides affect them if a bug they've eaten has been poisoned. Now chimney swifts are a very interesting bird because they are constantly flying. They only ever really stop unless they're nesting or to sleep. Otherwise, they are always on the move. But unfortunately, our environmental changes of losing the chimneys as well as pesticides in the environment for the bugs they eat, that is negatively affecting them and their numbers are declining. Now this one is an interesting one. This is a house sparrow. And for any of you birders who are watching this, you might be thinking, we don't care about house sparrows. They are invasive. And you're right. House sparrows come natively from Europe and Asia. And they invaded our country several decades ago. Actually, it was about 100 years ago. And these sparrows are highly adaptable. They take over the resources that our native birds use. Now, this is a type of bird that also eats bugs as well as grains, so they could be affected by herbicides and pesticides, but they're also prone to air pollution. So more humans in Kansas and more humans driving cars and using electricity for their houses, we have more air pollution. Now the problem is, this bird is also one of our top 5 who are declining in our state. And think about that. Yes, it's invasive, so we don't want it to keep spreading, but this bird has been able to adapt to human areas over the last 100 years. And now one of the most adaptable birds in the world. They're found all over, unfortunately, now that they've invaded many different spots in the world. One of the most adaptable birds is declining because of environmental changes. So if you think about that, if this adaptable bird is declining, what is happening to our native Kansas species who may not be able to adapt as easily as the house sparrow? So again, this is an animal who is declining. Now here's one of my favorites. This little cutie is a burrowing owl. Burrowing owls are one of the smallest owl species we have in Kansas, and as their name suggests, they burrow. They are found out in western Kansas, and they live near prairie dog towns because they like to use the prairie dog holes and fields as their own home. They nest on the ground, and they oftentimes forage for their prey, like insects and lizards and snakes, near the ground as well. This is a bird who is being affected by both of our major environmental changes. Pesticide use for the bugs that they eat and any animal that eats the bugs, as well as we're losing the prairies that we live on and being turned into things like agriculture. So burrowing owls are being hit from both ways. So this, unfortunately, is another example of a super cute animal who is declining. Now those are the top 5 birds that we see on the decline in Kansas, but I do want to show you one 6th one because it's our state bird, the western meadowlark. These guys are also not doing well. Now they're not in the top 5, but even our state bird, the beautiful western meadowlark, is declining because they are ones that forage near the ground, just like the loggerhead shrike and just like the magpie and the burrowing owl. So many of the animals who get their food source near the ground, whether it's plants or bugs or smaller animals, they are going to be affected by that chemical use. So you guys, birds are very important. Birds like the turkey vulture are important for decomposition. Many of the other birds that we talked about are predators. They help control populations of smaller animals. Many of them disperse seeds from one location to the next, or they are pollinators, right? They help pollinate our flowers and our other crops. Bird watchers, us humans, for recreation, they put $41 billion into our economy in the United States each year. But the way that we are changing the environment, we have 2/3 of all of our bird species in the United States could face extinction if we don't stop some of these environmental changes. And it's not just habitat loss and herbicide and pesticide use, it's also things like warming temperatures, feral cats. There are many differing environmental challenges that our birds are facing. So before we talk about our turkey vulture, I have 2 things I want to tell you. First, if you are in 3rd grade, I've got an environmental changes worksheet for you, and it is linked in the comments here. I want you to pick a species, any species of plant and animal that you care about. It doesn't have to be a bird. Write that species in and write at least one environmental change that is affecting where it lives. Maybe habitat loss or herbicide and pesticide use. Maybe it's warming, the Earth is warming where it lives, or it's being affected by invasive species. Maybe the water and the land is changing where it lives. Then write how that environmental change affects your species. Are their numbers declining? Are they having to move? Are they losing their food or their home? And the ways that we can help. So one of the ways that we can help here in Kansas is to never use any type of poison or chemicals in our yard. Herbicides and pesticides, although they do get rid of weeds and bugs, they affect everything else. That is poison, and it is going through the food chain. It doesn't just stop with the bad thing you are trying to kill. Also, rodenticide, when people set out poison for rats and mice, those get consumed by so many things. Snakes, hawks, lots of other animals. I can't tell you how many animals come through the rehab unit all across the United States, rehab units, because they've been poisoned. Hawks have been poisoned from eating a mouse who ate rat poison. So It has ripple effects, friends. Please don't use poison. And another way you can help is to provide a habitat in your yard for the bird species. Not only bird houses, but also bird food, bird water baths, all sorts of things. And the second thing I want to tell you is that our friends at the Kansas Children's Discovery Center are actually right now on their Facebook. They just posted a video of how to make a bird house from household materials and bird craft. So after this video, wait till we're done here, go over to the Kansas Children's Discovery Center Facebook page and check out the super cool craft they have made for you relating to how to help birds. So now I want to meet one of my favorite birds that we have here at the Topeka Zoo, Lily the turkey vulture. Now, turkey vultures in particular are not a species who are declining. They are doing just fine in the United States. But vulture species around the world, particularly over in Africa and Asia, are being heavily affected by poison. People are not trying to directly poison the vulture, but because vultures are scavengers and will eat anything that dies, they are then eating poison from dead animals who people are intentionally trying to poison. And so especially in Africa and Asia, we are seeing huge declines in our vulture populations. And vultures get kind of a bad reputation. People think they're ugly, that they're gross, they eat dead things, but think about how important that is, right? They eat the dead things. They keep our world clean of the blood and the goop and the gore, and they get rid of the diseases that those animals that have passed away carry. So let's walk over, get a little bit closer, and we can meet Lily. So turkey vultures are found all over the United States. They can even fly as far south as Central and South America. They are a species who migrate during the winter time, because as you'll notice on Lily, she does not have any feathers on her head and on her feet. That is because her head and her feet are the 2 points of contact when she eats a dead animal. And sometimes she has to get really deep into that dead animal. Let's say a deer gets hit by a car. She's gonna be one of the main animals who cleans it up. And sometimes she's gotta stick her head pretty far into that deer as a way to get all of the good parts. So by not having any feathers on her head and her feet, it helps keep her clean of any of the blood and the goop and the gore. But because of that, they do have to migrate south for the winter, and you will see them coming back up now in the spring, summer, and fall. They are very intelligent birds. They're not quite as smart as parrots, but they are very, very smart. People like to say that vultures circle around dead things. They do that because they are so smart, they're actually riding the wind currents. The wind goes in a circle like this. It is called a thermal. Well, vultures, they want to conserve their energy. They don't want to flap a lot because that uses a lot of energy. So what they do is they ride the wind currents, which go in a circle, and what they're doing is they're using their really good eyesight and their good sense of smell trying to find the dead things. And once they see and smell the dead animals, they'll stop circling and just go down and eat it. So they're circling because the wind goes in a circle. It's kind of like when we're at the mall. You can choose to walk up the stairs and use a lot of energy, or you can ride the escalator and conserve your energy. Let's be honest, most of us choose the escalator, right? She's doing the same thing. She's riding the wind currents and she is saving her energy. You can oftentimes tell it's a turkey vulture when they fly, because one, they're not really flapping, they're gliding. And two, they've got the beautiful V. They hold their wings in a V, and V for vulture. And the underwings is gray. Now Lily here is one of my favorite birds for a few reasons. One, she's just Mrs. Personality. But two, she is an imprint, which means animals that open their eyes for the first time, the first thing they see, they think is mom and dad. Well, Lily is now 17 years old, but she was born in the wild as a wild turkey vulture. However, before she opened her eyes for the first time, there was a storm and she flew out of the nest, or fell out of the nest. She didn't have her flight feathers yet. She fell out of the nest onto the ground, and a farmer found her, and he was not able to put her back up because it was too high. So they called the rehab unit, they went and got Lily, and when Lily opened her eyes for the first time, the first thing she saw was a human. So she imprinted on us. She thinks all of you at home and me, she thinks that's what she is. She does not realize she is a vulture. So we could not release her into the wild because she didn't learn how to be a vulture. She didn't learn she is a vulture, and so that would not be good for her. But she is so smart and so well behaved that when we come and get her out of her flight pen for our classes, we just set the carrier next to her and she'll walk right in. They are very important, very intelligent animals, and they don't deserve the bad reputation that they get. So I just went on a little bit of a turkey vulture tangent because I love them so much and I could talk about them for 30 minutes. But are there any questions at home relating to Lily, bird decline, environmental changes, anything like that?
Well, the May kids and Nathan said she's very pretty.
Yes, exactly right. She's super pretty, aren't you, Lily?
Daniela wants to know what they eat at the zoo.
Excellent question. So she is a carnivore. She is going to be eating other animals, but she's mostly a scavenger, which means she likes to eat the dead things. So here at the zoo, she gets a variety of different things. She'll get a dead chick, she'll get a mouse, she might get a fish on an enrichment day, she might get a meatball. So they do switch it up just because, like humans, we like to try and eat differing foods, right? Otherwise it gets kind of boring. So she gets a variety of differing animal items.
Do they fly in a group?
They do fly in a group, yes. So they are social animals, so you can oftentimes see a group of them flying, and sometimes you'll see 10 or 20 of them in a group at a time. So that is one way, especially over in Africa, that poachers unfortunately are able to find where some of the animals are, is vultures will be in a group circling around, and they found a kill from an animal, and then poachers can follow the vultures, unfortunately. But yeah, they do live in groups.
Eli wants to know if when they choose to fly, are they fast or average?
They are average. So because they are not flapping very, very fast, they're not going to be as fast as like a hawk or a falcon or anything like that. They are going to be birds that take their time, Eli, and they're really riding the wind. They're only going to be flying fast if they're like caught in a windstorm or if they're trying to get away from a predator. But most of the time they're going to be conserving their energy, slow movers. But one fun fact, they can fly over 50 miles when they migrate without flapping their wings. That is how good they are at riding the wind currents, which I think is just mind-blowing.
Liliana wants to know, what's her enrichment?
Excellent question. So you can see that she is perched on a variety of logs right here. So with Lily, we do oftentimes move these logs around. We give her differing toys to kind of peck at. Sometimes they'll put her food in puzzle feeders that she's got to kind of figure out how to get it out. And she's an education animal, so she actually comes out with us on programs quite a bit. And she is very social. She loves my boss, Dennis. He's actually the one who found her and rehabilitated her. It's like her dad. So anytime she's with humans and doing programs, that's very enriching to her as well.
What should we do if we find an injured vulture?
Oh, great question. So please just call the Northeast Kansas Wildlife Rescue Unit. It's a 24-hour hotline. How it works is you call, leave a voicemail, and they will call you back. And the number is very easy. It's 785-575-1991. 575-1991. And that's not just vultures, that's most injured or orphaned wildlife here in Kansas. And it's a good number to have just in case you're not sure if something's injured, especially now in the spring during baby season. People are starting to find birds on the ground who are learning to fly, or baby bunnies. We don't want to steal them from their parents, so let them be, but if you're unsure, call that number as well.
Do they come in different colors or mostly red head and black body?
So turkey vulture specifically, this is going to be their coloring, but there are over 20 species of vulture in the world, and they do come in a variety of sizes and shapes, and condors are part of that family.
Do they mate for life?
They are monogamous generally, but these guys can live quite a long time, over 20 years in the wild, so it's usually they will keep one mate over time as long as that mate doesn't pass away. And they can lay, a couple eggs at a time. And both mom and dad take care of the eggs and the young until they're able to leave the nest.
Eli is asking if we'll ever have an exhibit for her for us to see at the zoo.
That's a great question, Eli. Not in the plans at the moment. I would love that as well, but unfortunately we've got this beautiful bird run back here, which that's not unfortunate, it's just unfortunate it's not on the public view. And right now a lot of our money is just going to updating some of our other exhibits who need it more. I mean, this is a very nice bird run out here. She's got a really long exhibit, so I don't think she will have something on the public side anytime soon, but that's why we come to camp, right? And we use her for education classes a lot.
How many eggs do they weigh at a time?
Usually 1 to 4. And they're speckled, which is kind of fun. They're white with specks on them.
Elliot and Grace would like to know if Lily was hurt when the farmer found her.
Excellent question. So no, thankfully when she fell down, she wasn't injured, like she didn't have a broken wing or anything, but she imprinted, which means she thought that humans are her kind. So they can't go back once that's the case. She believes she's a human. So she did not learn how to be a vulture, or that she is a vulture, and she would not have been able to survive in the wild.
How long do they live?
So in the wild, about 20 years. In human care, they can live longer. So Lily is now like 17 or 18 years old. So she is kind of up there in age, but she is still one of our favorite animals, and we hope to have her for several more years.
How big are they when they are born?
They're about that big. I mean, they're just probably about the size of a robin. These guys do get, you know, pretty big. Their wingspan, if she holds out her wingspan, it could be about 5 feet wide. So they are pretty big. So they're, yeah, I would say about the size of a robin. And they're super cute when they're born. They're all white, and they just have their down feathers, which is the underlayer of feathers that keeps them warm. And then they have to grow these beautiful flight feathers after that. Okay. Well, you guys, I do want to say thank you so much for learning about beautiful Lily here, but also just the changes that humans are doing to our environment. Please think about any actions that you take in terms of, you know, using herbicides, using pesticides, any type of poison, and try and be proactive. Provide habitat and food and water for animals in your backyard. It is very important. And like I said, go visit the Discovery Center Facebook page to do a craft now. So if that is it for our questions, we will be back tomorrow for a 4th grade lesson on invertebrates or bugs. So we'll see you guys then.